Hello, me talking alone to myself in my car again. I'm really gonna make the move. And I have the camera, I had the tripod, I'm just gonna reorganize my office and set it up so that I can start doing these habitually, ritually, daily, or a couple times a week to share this stuff with the world. But today, my mind, when I got in the car, I was thinking about relativity and how so much of life is relative and experiences. But often, I don't know what people think in general, but scientifically, when people hear relativity, they probably think of the theory of relativity. But I was thinking about relativity with a sense of relationships, with the sense of society. And it just popped into my head because I moved up to New Hampshire a couple of years back, almost 3 years now. I wanted to get up here sooner, but couldn't really do much during COVID and stuff, and I had a parent pass away. But anyways, now that I'm here and I've been looking at houses and stuff, houses were like way overpriced. They were like $500K. And then now some of those $500K houses are down to like $300K. But the payments are the same because the interest rate was low on the 500K, and now the interest rate's gone high on the 300K. So it's not really much of a difference. It's kind of like a crash up, where if I bought a $500,000 house 2 years ago, my payment would be about the same if I locked in that interest rate as if I bought a 300K house today, or 300 and whatever, like 7% or higher. And that just kind of sprung my head off into relationships and thinking about how a lot of people don't realize that. And I think the banks are taking advantage of people that don't understand that everyday type of relativity within mathematics. And then I was kind of thinking about once I did a lot of work on myself and make myself over years studying philosophy and taking care of myself and just digging deeper and making myself healthier, I started losing more and more people in my life. And then I would see people that wanted to improve, like reach out to me. And then I would have this huge clash and they would disappear. And I was like, why do they disappear? And then I checked back in with them and I started realizing, like, if you got a bunch of shitty people in your life and then you end up having a good person in your life, you start really recognizing relativity sets in. And if you had nothing to compare the shittiness to before, if everybody that you met is shitty, you know, if everybody that you met makes $500 a week and you're making $500 a week, you feel like you're doing pretty good until you find out people are making $1,000 a week, and then you feel like half is good. So if you got a bunch of shitty people in your life and then you meet a really good person, you're going to start questioning all your relationships. And then if your whole life starts getting torn apart, like you don't want to deal with any of these people anymore, a couple things will happen. Either that person then starts to have to change their whole life and clean things up, or the shitty people will recognize the good person and either try to bring them down to the shittiness, similar to how they say, you know, you're the accumulation of your 5 closest friends. You're also the same thing societal. So whether you want to or not, the jobs, the cars, the markets, the people around you are influencing you in You need a principled stance. That's why I love philosophy. Something to anchor you to reality so you don't get torn and pulled towards socialism. And socialism, they call it whatever. They give it fancy names. They make it pretend like socialism is, you know, they'll give it a fancy name. You look it up on Wikipedia and some Jewish guy will give it a fancy technical name like the work of shared and the shared work of the sharedness. No, it's very simple. They gave it the name that it is. It's hiding in plain sight. They're trying to make things social. So instead of there being an objective truth, it's whatever social says around you is the truth. So if they keep forcing you, like Orwell's 1984, to say 2 + 2 is not 4, eventually enough people give in, it'll be something else. And I won't get into the philosophical aspects of the name, because of course 2 + 2 could be 5 if 5 was the name we chose to call 4. But in the reality of science, a unit and a unit with another unit and a unit is 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit, and you can't change that. You can't take a unit, a unit, a unit, and a unit and say how many units is that, and take unit, 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 how many units is that? It can't be this many units. So whatever names you want to call that, it can't be that. You can tell people it's that, and if they're dumb enough, or they want to socialize enough, or they're scared enough, or they're feared enough, or they need the collective enough, then they'll say it out loud, even if their heart doesn't, and then the reality will click away. But I guess what I want to talk about today with this relativity thing is just, one, on the individual level, take a look around and see where you've become compliant based on the relative comparisons of your surroundings. And then see if you can then figure out principled solutions based on your actual skill sets, if that's where you should be. Sometimes relativity will pull you up. That's why people that are at the bottom love democracy and communism and socialism, and democracy where there's 51%. Because if you're dumb and you make 49% of your decisions poorly, then you probably want to listen to the masses, because they'll maybe make 50 decisions for you that are correct while you're making 49 incorrect or whatever, you know. They can balance it out for you. But if you're a good decision maker with a good head on your shoulders and you're being forced into what the masses are doing, it's a poor strategy. So I'm at my destination. This is where I got to start making videos, because this would go longer, but I'm rushing it because I'm at my destination. Is don't use these words interchangeably. They're very precise words, but democracy is 51% ruling over the 49%. Socialism is whatever you can get the social consensus to be. Relativity is kind of your bubble of where you're at on a social level of what you see, and it's kind of like, you know, when they talk about the Matrix, it's being able to see through that. It's being like being an economist is like, you know, it's like in stuff and like being an economist is when you're able to see the unseen. You can see these social elements. So whether it's buying a house and thinking, oh, I just bought this house for $200K cheaper than this person, but in actuality the interest rate's higher, so you have the same payment, and you're paying the same interest over time because the percentage of the payment that you've done with the interest is higher. Or you're surrounded by shitty people and you feel like life is shitty, and every time you try to claw yourself out to a good person, all the bad people want to claw you back into their reality. And then on top of that, anybody that your job is depending on that, your doctor, your therapist, your pharmacist, the pharmaceutical companies, the companies that sell you fats, the companies that sell you salts, this company that sells you alcohol, the company that sells you weed. All these people start selling you things that make the relativity seem bearable. They have an invested interest in you staying in that situation that you're in. But if you can, there's this old movie called Poltergeist, and in it, the house is possessed by a ghost because the house is built on a Indian burial ground. And the youngest child, this little girl, gets pulled into the television set, into like a parallel dimension, into the ghostly spirits, and she's lost in this void. And I believe the father has to go in and get her with help from a spiritual. This woman shows up, and she's like a psychic / spiritual thing, and they tie a rope around the father's waist, and he goes into this thing, and then the family pulls the rope out. And at the time, it makes a lot of sense from a physical level, but then when you get older, it's very well written to the sense on a metaphysical level, like, if you get pulled into a negative space and you're lost in there alone without help, somebody can come in and get you and try to help you and support you, but you have to be anchored to a reality. And then like the whole family is anchored to this reality, and the whole family gets together, with the father being the one that takes the risk and goes to the head, but the family supports the father physically with this rope being pulled, and then they support them to save the youngest daughter from the demons and bring her back to reality. And then they run out of this house, and the whole thing collapses and gets destroyed, and she's rescued or whatever. But that's a good metaphor for getting yourself like planted into the reality of the world with philosophy, with science, the scientific method, and really understanding the works, instead of getting pulled into the void and then just feeling lost and scared, and she's just in there, TV's crying, and they can hear her when the static comes on. So don't get lost in the poltergeist world. I guess that's the moral of the story today. Anyways, I gotta make videos like this that are a little bit more cohesive, a little bit more linear and thought process, and get a studio going, because again, I'm cutting this short and I'm rushing it, but I had more to say on the topic. So hope everybody's having a great day. Take care.